Hello, Buckeye fans. We are here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center after Ryan Day and Jim Knowles spoke to the media. I'm Patrick Murphy, Steve Hellwagon, Dave Biddle, Bucknuts, 24/7 Sports. We'll start with the bad news. We have one on probably either side of the ball. Dave, I'll ask you, Mayan Williams, you posted the story. Obviously, he's been the third string running back this year, but he's had some moments, 3 touchdowns, over 100 rushing yards. What do you make of him being out the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's a concern just because of depth. If they're able to stay healthy, meaning if Travion Henderson's able to stay healthy and Chip stays healthy, they'll be fine. But if all of a sudden one of those guys gets banged up or both, they do have Dallin Hayden, break glass in case of emergency, Dallin Hayden, which I know they're trying to register him, but that's probably out the window now. I think I keep saying that every week. You have to think that's probably out the window now. Evan Pryor is ready. He's played a little bit. Still, that was a very serious knee injury he had, the torn patellar tendon, but, he's now, 14, 15 months removed from that, so Evan Pryor's there. But that was a surprise, even though, like you said, Patrick, mine's been the number 3 tailback for most of this year, second string sometimes when Trey was out. His stats this year don't look good, only 3.2 yards per carry, under 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. But then I almost forgot, I was looking last year. This is a young man that averaged, almost 7 yards per carry last year, led the team with 14 touchdowns last year. The previous year in 2021, averaged over 7 yards per carry. So, again, if they're able to stay healthy at the running back position with the other guys, this is not a big blow. But, man, you liked having a guy like Mayan just in case. So, and that was a surprise. I was not expecting I didn't think he would, I wonder if it's something that happened in practice last week, because he played against Penn State, didn't play very much, and then we didn't hear anything. Then all of a sudden he appeared on the availability report as out, and now we're hearing he's out for the season. So, bad news there.
He didn't play the fourth quarter, I don't think, against Penn State, so it's possible. Am I right? Trianum came back in to finish the game, so I think something may have happened in the third quarter, early fourth quarter against Penn
I just
State.
Chalked that up to, no, you could be right. That could have been it.
It could be.
But I just chalked that up when Trianum came back in, because Chip was the number 2. Oh, he was the starting running back in that game, wasn't he? I just chalked it up
and
to that.
And he missed on the pass protection, and they pulled him out, and Mayan played the second, third period.
That would make the most sense that he got hurt against Penn State.
It's possible.
And maybe it was more serious than they thought.
It's possible.
I don't know. That would make a lot of sense, because they're not tackling in practice. It could have been a non-contact injury.
Not at this point.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's tough to speculate on what it is or when it happened. But before we get to the other injuries, Steve, Ryan seemed to feel like the Buckeyes started to get something going in the run game. And obviously the numbers look good with Travion Henderson back last week. What did you kind of make of their performance there? And is that repeatable going forward?
Man, what a complex question, because, like anything in this game, there is no one-size-fits-all answer to this. Between the tackles, they are still somewhat of a mess in terms of productivity. I think they ran some really nice counter plays. That the one where he turned and acted like he was going to give it to the guy in motion and gave it to Trey, and Trey went backside. That was awesome. I thought that was, I guess that'd be the front side, but that was an awesome play that shows some creativity, that they can create some yards between the tackles that they're going to need to create. They didn't, at times they struggled in short yardage. Getting the ball the outside of the perimeter is where it's at. And they blocked it great, obviously, on that touchdown run. He had one guy to miss at the line of scrimmage and then ran away from everybody else that was in pursuit. And that just gives you that element that when you get the ball in his hands, it can go the distance if he can make that one guy miss. And if everybody else blocks it perfectly, I think Harrison was blocking for him. Fleming. And then Fryer, I think, came across on a pull, and they just blocked it perfectly. I think Donovan Jackson hit one in there as well for him on the left side. So to me, they are this close to putting it all together. We can segue this into the rankings tonight. People give me a bunch of crap because I had Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3. But on resume, Ohio State could be number 1. I mean, they've got 2 great wins over Notre Dame and Penn State. And I count Wisconsin as a great win as well, because I think Wisconsin's going to end up 9-3. And at the end of the year, you beat a 9-3 team. That's pretty good. So I look at it that it could be any of the 3 at number 1. I think you could put those 3 together and pull them out of a hat. Resume-wise, eye test wise. It's two different things that you're looking at. To me, Michigan played, 6 pretty complete games. They're 8-0. Ohio State's played maybe 3 complete games. Western Kentucky, Purdue, and probably Penn State. They dominated Penn State. I mean, they're leaving points on the field in each one of these games, and that's what gives you the pause to say they're not the number 1 team, but they've got the number 1 resume. So you could rate them any way you want. We'll see what the committee says tonight, but that was my 2 cents, kind of dovetailing off the offense and the running back. In the running game, you want to be encouraged by it, and yet you want to see it. So that's the thing. You want to see it against a good team.
Yeah, well, and I think the Mayan Williams injury, you mentioned short yardage. He's kind of been that short yardage back. I mean, that's where he's probably at his best. He can get out in the field and do some things, but they've used him a lot in the red zone when he's been healthy. And it's probably been as effective as anyone. Still not overly effective, but I think you're going to miss him maybe in those situations if they don't figure out another thing. Though it did sound promising. Devin Brown, Ryan Day said he thought he could practice as soon as today, and we're recording this on Tuesday, so positive there. Let's go to the other injury. We'll come back to the college football playoff rankings at the end. Lathan Ransom. Ryan Day didn't want to give an update yet. Doesn't sound positive, though. Is that how you read it?
That's definitely how I read it. It sounded ominous. It doesn't sound, maybe if I had to guess, that it's season ending, but it doesn't. It's one of those things where, like, even if he could possibly play one of these next 3 games, maybe just hold him out for the Michigan game. At this point, it sounds like, Coach Day said they're not going to say anything right now about it. They have an idea of how long he might be out, that they'll have a better idea later in the week. And then he said, we'll have an update for you probably later in the week. We're not going to hear anything. We won't
Saturday
know.
When the availability report.
Yeah, and I'll be shocked if Lathan plays. I had the same vibe you did. That did not sound good. That sounded like that is at least a couple weeks. Hopefully it's not more. Hopefully it's one of those things where he'll be okay. Theoretically, he'd be okay before the Michigan game, but you hold him out, get him ready for that big game, because they're going to win these next 3 games. Not with Rutgers is decent, Minnesota's decent, Michigan State is awful. They could play their club team and beat Michigan State with our boy James Craig. But no, seriously, hopefully Lathan Ransom is going to be okay, for the end of the regular season, but I won't be surprised if he's out the next few weeks.
Yeah, I agree, and it sounds like they will go with Sonny Styles taking over that bandit position and move Jordan Hancock more permanently to the nickel. There could be some other options. There are other guys who could step in, but that's what Jim Knowles seemed most comfortable with based on what he said. So that's what I would expect going forward. Let's go back to Devin Brown real quick, because this sounded like it was at least a couple weeks. If he's back, I don't know if you use him this week if he's just getting back into practice, but that's a lot quicker than you would have expected. And as Ryan Day said last week, they had some things drawn up for him to use. This could be a positive, getting him back quicker than maybe I think most expected.
Yeah, I took that with a grain of salt.
Sure.
I'll be surprised if basically he said he's going to maybe practice today. And to what extent, we don't know. That could be a thing where he's out there, he's dressed, but he's going like half speed at best. I don't think there's any chance he's going to play against Rutgers. He's another guy that I think they're just going to try and get ready for that Michigan game in case he's needed. Especially now with Mayan out and the struggles in short yardage, that's going to amplify it, as you mentioned, not having Mayan, because he does have a knack for finding those 1 or 2 tough yards, have a knack for finding the end zone, hence his 14 touchdowns last year. But yeah, getting Devin Brown back would be big. Kyle's struggling. Kyle's a little banged up, but not against Rutgers, not against Michigan State, maybe against Minnesota. Maybe he'll return by then, but they said that was a high ankle sprain, and every doctor says that's about a 4-week to 6-week injury, also a high risk of re-injuring it. So I think he's going to be out at least 4 weeks, meaning 2 more weeks, and then hopefully he'll be back after that 4-week. But yeah, there's no way he's going to play this week on a high ankle sprain.
I wouldn't think so either. Yeah, that seemed to me like a little quick. I think maybe just get the ball in his hands and kind of get the feel going again.
I think Mark Pantoni will tell us. Maybe we'll get Mark on him. He can let us know. Mark Pantoni walking by. We can just have Coach Pantoni come over and tell us.
Yeah,
what's going on. I'm sure he would love to give injury updates and get in trouble with the head coach. Yeah, and get some recruiting updates. Why not? He can definitely talk about recruits on the record.
Kyle McCord. There were some stories about him before the Penn State game because he played high school in Pennsylvania, but this is his actual homecoming. He is from New Jersey. where they will play this game on Saturday. Not that I think that matters to him much at all, but a nice little segue. Kyle was not great. We talked about it on the post-game show.
Not great, Bob.
Yeah,
not good, Bob.
As Ryan Day said, he was actually better in the second half when he was battling that ankle injury. Still was far from perfect.
I was waiting for him to say because it couldn't get any worse.
Yeah.
No.
Now, I asked Ryan about throwing the ball away, something that he stressed a lot when Justin Fields first got here. Stressed it a good amount in C.J. Stroud's first year. We haven't heard him talk about it as much with Kyle McCord, but obviously that could have helped the Buckeyes on Saturday on that first interception. When you look at McCord, he hasn't taken off the way I think anyone is expecting. There's been good moments, as Ryan Day said. He's graded out well for the most part. What needs to happen here with Kyle for this offense to kind of take its next step?
Well, there is definitely room for him to continue to grow and improve, and I think that these next 3 games are very important in that regard. And I'm not going to just assume they throw their helmets out on the field and win these 3 games. Obviously, Rutgers, Michigan State, Minnesota, you can, talk about them any way you want. This is the best Rutgers team that they've had in 6 or 7 years. They're going to be in a bowl game. They were in a bowl game a couple of years ago as a fill-in when they only won 5 games, but they're actually going to earn a bowl trip this year on merit, and probably going to end up around 8 wins, I would think, by the time the season all comes to an end. So another reasonably good team. And again, the best team Shiano's had since he's been back at Rutgers. So, Ohio State has handled Rutgers. I'm starting to write the story, the game data, and it's like, it's been, ridiculous. Ohio State's had 50 points or more in this series, like 6 of the 9 times they've played. And it's been pretty ugly at times. The closest game was 22 points. I think 3 years ago, they played at Ohio Stadium. It was a 22-point game, something like that. That's the closest game in the rivalry. So, Ohio State with a noon start can't go in there, with trying to get the sleep out of their eyes. And, like Lou Holtz used to say for those early games,
you can't talk about Lou Holtz right now. People get a
Lou
little fiery.
Lou Holtz. You gotta give him a glass of orange juice and the morning paper, and get him up and get him moving and all those other things.
Lou was part of the 1968 national championship
right
team
there.
here, though.
Right
Probably another
there.
reason that pissed off Coach Day. It's like Lou actually coached for the Buckeyes at one point.
Yeah, has been part of a championship. So
Yeah.
there you go. But at any rate, I just think for back on McCord, he's got to make full use of these 3 games. And that means go out there and play good football. Start fast. Hit passes in the beginning. Click. They have a script of what they want to do at the beginning of the game. Those plays need to work. And then you build off of that and you go to the part plan B, plan C, plan D for the rest of the game. And, they're having a hard time getting through plan A right now. It's just, I don't know. They again, as I said, you'd like this team a lot better when it comes to comparing them to Georgia, Florida, or rather Georgia, Florida State, Washington, and Michigan, if you knew that they were razor sharp on the offensive side of the ball. Well, they really haven't been all season. I mean, it's been one game after another. Purdue, they clicked a little bit. Western Kentucky was really good, 50-some points. But, beyond that, it's been a struggle. It's just been 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward. And, the other day, penalties, turnovers, and negative plays were just a killer.
One other thing on the offensive side of the ball, Coach Day sounded as optimistic as he has the last couple of weeks, though I believe him this week on Emeka Egbuka. Sounds like he will play and be back this week, which I think is a positive. The negative on the defensive side of the ball, Lathan Ransom, obviously, but you've done a lot of good things on this side of the ball, and I think a lot of it is less, and I wrote about this last night, individual players and more the scheme. You take out a guy like Denzel Burke, they don't miss a beat against Penn State. Losing a guy like Lathan Ransom certainly is not what you want to have happen, but you're putting Sonny Styles back there. And to me, it's more of a scheme that has been successful than any one individual guy that you point to. Like last year, Tommy Eichenberg was the best player on this defense. This year, I don't know who the best player on this defense is. A lot of guys have made plays. I feel like they're able to lose a guy here or there. You obviously can't lose too many, and still be able to be successful because of the way that they're playing as a group. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Losing a guy like Tommy would be huge because
Yes.
he's the quarterback of the defense. And Lathan's played great, so don't get me wrong. But yeah, if this means well, we're not going to have Lathan, but Sonny Styles is going to play more snaps. That's a good problem to have if that's the solution. Well, what are we going to do? Like, how about we play Sonny Styles even more? Like that's a
And
great
Jordan
plan
Hancock's
B.
played really well.
And Jordan Hancock has been fantastic in the slot. They've got 3 top shelf corners with Burke, Igbinosun, and Hancock. And now it's not like they're fighting to see who that number 2 corner is. All 3 of those guys are playing a ton. So that's huge. Now, that being said, they're going to be fine. Steve's right. You can't just roll your helmets out there and beat Rutgers and Minnesota. You could against Michigan State, this iteration of Michigan State. But get Lathan Ransom ready for Michigan. You're going to need all hands on deck for that game, all hands on deck if they're fortunate enough to make the playoffs. But yeah, especially with Sonny Styles playing more snaps. I don't know what's happened to Kai Stokes. I thought he'd be more in the mix. They could use Malik Hartford if they needed to. But I agree with you. It is, this is a very talented defense. There's no doubt about it. But the scheme is just so good, and they've all bought in. They're in year 2 of the Knowles system, and we're watching an elite defense.
Jim Knowles was asked about Rutgers quarterback, probably the most. I'm going to use my legs, not to just move around, but to pick up yards. How do you feel like they are prepared to handle that this week?
Well, I do the first look column every week, and every week I throw a paragraph in about pretty much every Big Ten game. And every week I'm writing about Kyle Monangai, however you pronounce that, Monangai, and Gavin Wimsatt. And one or both of them most weeks is close to 100 yards. They both have 7 rushing touchdowns on the season, so both guys are very capable runners, the quarterback and the running back. And Ohio State's run defense is going to have to come to play this week. They're not as big a threat throwing the football, but they got a couple guys who can make some plays for them. And playing at home, obviously, Rutgers. The thing I've been impressed with, Ohio State went out there a couple of years ago. I think they won like 52-17 or something, like a 39-point win or something. And they draw a huge crowd, and
it's the birthplace of college football.
Birthplace of college football. They're 6-2. The losses to Wisconsin and Michigan. And Michigan was a 7-7 game at the end of the first half. Michigan scored a touchdown right before halftime, and then Sanders still had a pick 6 interception return, and they won the game 31-7. I think that was the day we were at
Notre Dame
at South Bend covering the Notre Dame.
It was also the day that Schiano had his now infamous halftime interview.
halftime.
I was watching that live, like, what's he talking about?
Some things are going on.
Some strange things are going on. I'm like, what is he talking about? We know what he's talking about now.
Yeah. Strange things.
Yeah. Strange things.
Yeah.
Strange things, man.
So, to me, Ohio State's got to bring their lunch pail to stop the run game. I don't envision Rutgers running for 200 yards against Ohio State. I just don't see that that's possible, and I don't think they're going to throw for more than about 100 or 125. So they're going to be artificially held down, I think, kind of like what Michigan did, the number Michigan did on them. And if Ohio State can get to 30, it should be more than enough to win this game.
Yeah, this is an anemic, an anemic passing offense.
123rd.
Yeah.
Actually.
What's funny is I was doing a little research on the stats, and I saw Rutgers 123rd in the country out of 130 teams in passing offense. I'm like, damn, that's pretty bad. But we're the 7 teams that are worse than them. 3 of them are in the Big Ten. So, like, Rutgers is 123rd in the country.
Iowa. Michigan State.
The last one's going to be kind of tricky.
Minnesota?
So maybe go back to their roots. No, actually, I was wrong. Michigan State's not in there. It's Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. With Iowa being the worst. And then, so the other 4 then that are worse than Rutgers in passing are Kent State, and then the 3 service academies. So there you go. So Ohio State's going to make them one-dimensional. Rutgers is a solid running team, 39th in the country, I believe, in rushing offense. But this Ohio State defense is elite. They know Rutgers can't throw the ball. They're just going to sell out to stop the run and try and make Wimsatt beat them with the pass. And I think this is going to be a long, long night for Rutgers. Afternoon, I should say. I would still probably take the under. The over-under is like 42.5. I'd still probably rock the under.
Yeah, and the trick plays, you have to be ready for those against Rutgers. They have notoriously been able to bring those out. All right, Steve already talked about his thoughts on the college football playoff rankings. You will have the breaking story once they are announced. I wrote something this morning about why Ohio State's case to be number 1. Dave, just your thoughts on where you would have the Buckeyes ranked and maybe where you think they will be ranked.
Oh, I would probably put them number 2. I'll give Georgia their due. And Georgia is coming off a really good win. Florida's not that good, but still, Georgia did not look like they were really like Georgia to me early in the year, but they've started to turn it on. Kentucky's not a great team, but Kentucky went down there. People thought that'd be a good game in Athens, and Georgia just blew them out. 2-time defending national champs. I'll put them number one. I think the committee probably will. I won't be surprised if Ohio, I'm kind of repeating what Joel Klatt said. I won't be surprised if Ohio State's number one, but I won't be surprised if they're not. But that's legit. That's exactly how I feel. So I think it's probably going to go Georgia 1, Ohio State 2. I saw Heather Dinich has Michigan 5th. She predicts them 5th because they have the weakest schedule by far of any of these teams that are in contention. Florida State's going to be up there.
Win?
They don't
Rutgers.
have one. Rutgers is their best win. Seriously, they haven't played anybody. It's ridiculous, and their non-conference schedule is an absolute joke. But so yeah, I'll go Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, probably Florida State 3. I think they'll put Michigan 4th, Washington 5th. I don't know if they're going to drop Michigan all the way to 5th. So that's what I'll go with. I'll go with Michigan will be in their 4th. Washington will be the first team out.
I wonder, maybe not this ranking, but down the road, if this Michigan stuff is still floating around there, do they eventually think about, well, we don't want to have a team in there that later on we have to go and vacate wins and stuff like that. And if, say Michigan beats Penn State, but it's not overly convincing, you get down towards the end of the season, I wonder if that comes into play at all. I don't know, just speculation.
I think you got to weigh it all out. I think you got to rank the teams on the basis of how they played, and until such time they've been ruled ineligible, they're still eligible. So that's kind of you can't take that other stuff into account because it hasn't been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. I mean, there's a lot of hints and allegations and whatever, and it looks really bad, but until such time that the Big Ten or the NCAA rules them out, they're still in. So, and they're playing great football. So, I guess do with that whatever you will.
Yep.
It's all going to come out in the wash because Ohio State either beats them or Ohio State loses to them. And we're down to 5 Power 5 teams that are undefeated.
Yep.
We're guaranteed no more than 4 because Ohio State and Michigan play. If something happens to Florida State or Georgia or Washington, then you've opened the door for Alabama and Oregon and all these other teams to say, hey, we should be in there too. So it's going to be a little messy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. A lot of people will tell you that these first rankings don't mean anything. They don't in terms of where teams will end up, but they do give us an idea of what the committee's looking for, which I always think makes these interesting because now next week when we're writing stuff, we kind of know, okay, this is what they like, this is what they focus on more, as opposed to right now where it's just kind of blind with a new committee. So we're going to wrap it up. We'll have plenty more on the site throughout the day. Bucknuts, Dave Biddle, Steve Hellwagon, thanks for joining me, guys, for this instant reaction, and we'll talk to you later this week, maybe even tomorrow. See you guys.
I gotta get